He conquered the known world before his 30th birthday, a warrior king raised by philosophers and forged in the fires of battle. A man who believed he was the son of Zeus, destined not just to rule, but to transform the world. But even for the great Alexander, there was a final campaign. Today, we journey through the dramatic, complex, and haunting final months of Alexander the Great's life. We'll dive into the dreams that drove him, the enemies he faced both on the battlefield and in his own court, and the mysterious circumstances surrounding his sudden death in Babylon. This isn't just history. It's the last act of an epic tragedy, the fall of a man who had touched divinity, and then slipped from its grasp.
To understand Alexander's final campaign, we must first understand the man. The boy king, educated by Aristotle, dreamed of more than just ruling Macedonia. He dreamed of uniting the known world, east and west, not just through conquest, but through culture. From the shattered cities of Thebes to the deserts of Persia, Alexander carved a path of glory and fear. His army, loyal and battle-hardened, marched behind him not just because of gold, but because they believed in him. He was not just a general, he was a living myth. To his men, he was Achilles reborn. To the east, he was a god king like Pharaoh. But for Alexander, it was never enough. Every time he reached the edge of the world, he looked further. Every mountain he climbed, he asked what lay beyond. It's like a genius entrepreneur who builds the world's greatest company, but the moment they achieve it, they immediately burn it all down to start again. For Alexander, the conquest wasn't the end. The journey was the point.
By 326 BCE, Alexander stood on the banks of the Hyphasis River in India. He had crossed half the world, fought elephants, defeated kings. He wanted more. His next dream? Arabia. And then perhaps even the distant lands the Greeks only whispered about. But his men? They were done. They had been marching for over 8 years. Thousands had died. They had left families behind. And now they stood in a monsoon-soaked jungle at the edge of the map. In a dramatic standoff, Alexander pleaded with them. He raged, he threatened, he wept. But his army, for the first time, said no. This was the turning point. Alexander had reached the outer limit of human endurance, not just in geography, but in leadership. It was the first crack in his legend. He turned back, but not in defeat. No, Alexander never surrendered. He would now march south into the unknown deserts of Gedrosia.
What followed was one of the greatest disasters in ancient military history. Alexander chose to march his army through the Gedrosian Desert, a barren, scorching hellscape in modern-day southern Iran. Why? Historians debate to this day. Was it punishment for his men who had refused him? A test of loyalty? A shortcut? Or was he simply obsessed with doing what no one had done before? The journey was brutal. Starvation, dehydration, sandstorms. Some say over half his army died. Thousands of pack animals collapsed. Men drank brine, ate leather, fell asleep and never woke. But Alexander? He walked on foot with them, refused water unless everyone could drink. He suffered alongside them. He may have been a god to others, but in that desert, he was just a man. Imagine your boss not just giving orders, but working beside you in the trenches, digging through the mud, bleeding with you. That was Alexander, and that's why, even in death, his name echoes.
When Alexander finally emerged from the desert, he turned toward the city that would become the crown jewel of his empire, Babylon. It was ancient even in his time, a city of wonders, home of the Hanging Gardens, the gateway between East and West. Here, Alexander began to plan his most ambitious project yet, not a war, but a rebirth. He wanted to merge Greek and Persian culture, train Persian soldiers in Macedonian ways, encourage intermarriage, build a new world where East and West weren't enemies, but one. He envisioned harbors, fleets, a new Arabian campaign. Babylon would be the heart of this new empire. His court became a place of luxury and tension, because not everyone agreed with this vision. Many Macedonians began to grumble, "Our king is no longer one of us." He dressed like a Persian, adopted foreign customs, surrounded himself with eunuchs, astrologers, foreign scribes. And among his companions, paranoia began to grow. This period is clouded with mystery. Alexander had become increasingly suspicious. He executed close friends. He hunted for plots, real or imagined. One of his closest officers, Philotas, was executed for allegedly plotting against him. Even Philotas's father, the great general Parmenion, was murdered, just in case. The atmosphere in Babylon was tense. Some whispered that Alexander was no longer stable. Others feared his dreams were becoming delusions. And then came a strange incident, a mysterious omen. A man accidentally sat on Alexander's throne while he was away. The court was horrified. The man was executed. For ancient peoples, omens mattered. For Alexander, who believed in divine fate, it may have shaken him to the core. Was he losing control? In May of 323 BCE, Alexander attended a series of banquets. One night, after heavy drinking, he fell ill. Fever, pain, weakness. He took to bed. Over days, his condition worsened. He could no longer speak. His generals stood in silence, watching the greatest man they had ever known wither. And then, on June 10th, 323 BCE, Alexander died. He was 32 years old. His death shook the world. But what killed him? To this day, no one knows for certain. Was it malaria? Typhoid fever? An old wound? Alcohol poisoning? Or was it murder? Poison? The theories are endless, but what's clear is that his death was the end of an era. His generals, the Diadochi, would rip his empire apart in decades of war. His dream of unity shattered before it could take root.
And yet, his legacy endured. Cities named Alexandria dotted the world map. His legend inspired emperors from Rome to Napoleon. His image became myth. In Egypt, they worshipped him as a god. In Persia, he was remembered as both destroyer and visionary. In India, tales of a great Western warrior king survived for centuries. It's like a rock dropped in a lake. The splash is brief, but the ripples go on forever. Alexander's splash ended in Babylon, but the ripples, they're still moving.
But strip away the myth. Forget the golden armor, the divine titles, the statues. What do we see? A man, brilliant, ambitious, flawed, someone who burned so brightly he scorched everything around him. A man raised to believe he was destined for greatness, and who made the world believe it too. He was a fusion of West and East, of conqueror and philosopher, of God and mortal. And maybe, just maybe, that's why his story endures. Because he wasn't just great, he was human. So now, as we close this chapter on Alexander's final campaign, Ask yourself, what drives you? What's your edge of the map? What would you do if, like Alexander, you believed the world had no limits? Because perhaps that's the true lesson here. Not to conquer, but to imagine. Not to rule, but to dream so boldly that even failure becomes legendary. Alexander died young, but his story? It never did. If you enjoyed this journey through Alexander the Great's final days, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. What do you think truly happened in Babylon? Let us know. Until next time, keep exploring history, because the past is never really past.